called in. We're called in to work. Yes, this will be recorded, so you will get sent a copy of it afterwards. Yeah, we've had nurses called in to work because they were understaffed, which is just part of the job, unfortunately, and you guys will figure that out pretty soon. And then a couple of people are sick. So today you've got 3 of us who will be telling you a little bit about our background and answering your questions. We'll go around and introduce everybody in a minute, but maybe I'll just start with first telling you a little bit about who we are, but it'll be very brief because today is more about you. So Jordan's just going to share a quick slideshow for you so that we can just buzz through that real quick. Perfect. Thanks so much, Jordan. So we're the Nurses Professional Association of Australia. Just keep buzzing through, Jordan. We will be nice with this. Is the executive. So we've got Cara, who's the president, who's online at the moment. She does a lot of amazing work. I'm Ella Leach. I'm the secretary. Michelle's our treasurer. Next slide. That's me. Next slide. So basically, we look after you guys at work. We're a professional association. If you're having any issues at work or are needing support, we can help you, but we also fight for your rights in the workplace and provide you with indemnity insurance. Next slide, Jordan. We do lots of things in the media, lots of campaigns. Cara's had a lot of huge wins, which has been amazing in heaps of different sectors, aged care, etc. So, you'll see lots of that coming up if you end up becoming a member. So there are a few things that you need to have your registration with AHPRA. Hopefully, if you guys are starting work soon, you have already completed this. Otherwise, you're leaving it pretty fine and late in the piece to be applying for it. But you do need professional indemnity insurance to work as a nurse in Australia. You need your 20 hours CPD a year for being a registered nurse or an enrolled nurse. But that isn't such a huge thing in your first year because you'll have plenty of opportunity to do CPD with your grad year. And then recency of practice is also not relevant for your first year, but in the future you have to do 450 hours in the last 5 years. Next slide. So your indemnity insurance, you need to have $10 million worth of cover. You can get your indemnity insurance a number of ways. So you can go to an insurance broker and source through them. You can join a professional association or a union like us or the QNMU, or your workplace sometimes provides it, but it's always best to have your own insurance. The workplace ultimately will be looking after themselves a bit more than you, so you'll sleep better at night knowing you have your own, but you do need it regardless. Next slide. Now, this is just a little screenshot from AHPRA, saying to show you that this is from them saying that you do need it. With AHPRA, your insurance, I think people think that when they fill out their AHPRA registration that is actually your insurance, but it's not. You click a box when you fill out your AHPRA registration saying that you will get the adequate cover. That is not you saying that you are getting it through AHPRA. So your AHPRA registration does not equal your insurance. You need to get them separately. Next slide. We are a lot cheaper than the other options, so nearly $300 cheaper. We're non-political, so feel free to check us out. But ultimately, you need to find the best fit for you. We don't want people being members if they want to be members with us. So you have a look around and find out what's the best fit. I joined when I became a new grad 8 years ago just because it was cheap, and then I haven't looked back since. I've been working here for a few years, so have a look around. Next one. And these are just a few tips. We'll go more into this during the session, but these are 5 things that I thought were really important for new grads to know. So the first one is just be really patient with yourself. This is a really big year you're about to embark on if you're about to start your new grad year. And there is a reason it goes for at least a year, because it takes that long to find your feet. It took me about 8 months to feel not terrified walking into work. And we get a lot of questions from people saying, why am I still nervous? Is this normal? There's not really a normal and not normal in your grad year. It just depends on how you cope with it. You need to step outside your comfort zone. It's a real shock to realise that you're no longer able to hide behind an RN and say, I'm just a student. You are now the RN. And the only way you're going to learn is by trying to do things, stepping outside your comfort zone, being very honest about where you're at. So you're definitely not going to win any friends by pretending to know something you don't, and you could end up putting people in danger. There will be moments where you feel really embarrassed. Like it's just normal and unfortunately part of the process. You'll make mistakes even as a senior registered nurse. You will absolutely make mistakes. And then you just ask questions. If you need support, people aren't mind readers, and they're also extremely busy. So you need to tell people if you are needing some sort of help. Booking a holiday, this is my favorite one, because I think people think either that I shouldn't be taking a big holiday in my first year, or I want to save up my leave. It is a really full-on year. I recommend trying to book 2 holidays early. It's really hard to get leave sometimes. So have a look at your calendar, book 2 things so that you've got something to look forward to, because people start to feel quite burnt out a few months into their grad year. And if you think, I just need to get through another month or 2 and then I'm going off for 2 weeks, it'll make the world of difference. And then reminding yourself what you do know. So you'll be faced with so many unfamiliar situations, and it's so easy to feel like, I look at a patient and go, I don't know how to look after this person. But there's heaps of things that you will know how to do from the moment you step into your ward on your first couple of days. You've already done OBS, you've done basic assessments, you've probably given all sorts of meds. So look at the things you do know in a patient, and then focus on the things you do know, but identify what you don't know. And it should only be a couple of things usually, because in your grad year, they won't be giving you really complex patients unless there's absolutely no option. There'll be a few things that you can identify that you need help with, and this helps the senior staff know how to assist you. Everyone's at a different level when they start their grad year. Some people are able to understand what they're doing really well. I'm personally a hands-on learner, and I didn't find my placements really gave me enough practice for me to feel anyway confident. And it also depends what your placements have been. So people won't know unless you tell them. So those are my 5 big tips. Next slide, Jordan. And then, yes, with us, I know I was Pogo when I finished my grad year. So we offer 50% off for our new grads for their first year. You can sign up either monthly or annually using that code, but we'll post that at the end. Right now, we're going to go over to the APRA website, and I'm just going to show you quickly how that looks. So this is the APRA homepage. You can look up a practitioner there. So we're just going to look me up. So name, we'll go to nursing, maybe. Ella King, King. And I'm a nurse, not a chiropractor. I'm going to do that. Search. It'll be showing more results. That's me, the top one, Ella Nevada King. So it has my whole name. It has where I work. You can see when I registered. You can see if I'm still registered. You can see if I've got any restrictions on my license. So this is available to the public. You can see where I studied and when I graduated. You want to make sure that you are firstly doing your job properly, because people can look you up and report you anonymously. They do not have to put their name to it. So I'd be putting my last name, a sticker over my last name at work, or something like that, or protecting your ID. But be aware that this exists and this is what it looks like. We do work in a transparent profession. And you also, I've had people I work with make vexatious APRA complaints about me, which was quite daunting. They didn't put their name to it, but from the tone and the information in the report, I could tell it was someone that I'd worked with who didn't like me very much. The whole case got thrown out, and I didn't have any conditions or any issues with it. They just said, there's not enough evidence that any of this happened. But it is something that can actually happen. So just be aware of that. And then lastly, I'm just going to show you at the end, because we tend to lose people at the end. I'm just going to show you this now. So we will be asking for your feedback. Ultimately, we are doing these sessions for you guys, and the only way we can know if they are helpful or if they work is if you let us know. So there will be a link sent to you at the end, and we would be so grateful if you would fill this out for us. So just scroll down, Jordan. There's a few questions there that you can answer. There's also the codes for you to sign up and get your 50% off. Then at the bottom, you've got a couple of things that could be really cool to take advantage of. So if you find this session helpful in any way, if you're willing to give us a video review and a written review, we will have a look at it and see if we could use it, and then you might be able to get 1 year's free membership with us. So your PI insurance, you'll be covered for a whole year for free. Or if you haven't yet secured a grad program, which I know there's a lot of you, we are looking at launching a platform that will connect grads with not grad programs, but positions in a number of different healthcare settings where they are aware that you do not have any experience, but they are happy to take you on in a supported capacity. If this can be in small medical clinics, GPs, aged care, etc., and it'll be across different states and in rural areas as well. So if that is of interest to you, make sure you fill out the form at the end. Anyway, now we'll get started. So maybe we will start with Cara. Would you like to go first? So everyone's going to go around, just tell you who they are, a little bit about themselves, where they've worked, how they found things when they started working as a nurse, whether that was through a grad program or another way. And then just a little bit of advice for you guys, and then we'll open it up to questions. I've got quite a lot of questions that were pre-submitted as well, so we'll try and bust through those. But I would like to introduce Cara.
Hello, thank you, Ella. So as Ella said, I'm currently president of the Nurses Professional Association of Australia, which is not something I have to say I ever thought was something I would do early on in my career, but it's something that I find extremely interesting, sometimes quite a weight of responsibility, advocating for our profession, for policy change, and trying to raise issues that our members can't get raised other ways, and doing media, TV, radio, print, etc. But it's challenging and it's quite exciting. So I graduated 2001 and have been nursing since 2002. I was lucky enough to get a grad program, and I started at the Mater 2002, but I didn't initially get a grad program. So there were only 8 positions at the Mater when I applied, and I didn't hear for a couple of months, really did want to work there, and gave them a call and said, look, I haven't heard. And they said, all of our grad programs are filled, but you're number 9, and we'll give you a call if somebody doesn't. And I don't know whether I was or wasn't number 9, but I think the fact that I called them and said, look, I'm really interested, I'd like to work there, etc. When somebody pulled out, they gave me a call and offered me that last position. And it was quite a good, I got 2 rotations, and my first rotation was neuromedical, which was very heavy. As a first grad, and they were doing what was called team nursing at the time. So you had 1 RN, 1 EN, 1 AIN on each side of the ward, which was quite a responsibility sometimes, because sometimes you only had 2 grads on the floor if the num wasn't there, which is a shock to the system. And I can't say I didn't go home a few times and have a few tears, because trying to get your time management and your observation skills, and dealing with people going through withdrawal or having neurodegenerative conditions and all these sort of things that you have to learn to deal with as a new grad. And then my second rotation was orthopedic surgical, which I also really enjoyed, also very heavy. But the first rotation, we had a wonderful team of nurses, and that's probably one of the key things that makes your job much more bearable sometimes, when you might be short-staffed and it might be very heavy, or it might be emotionally draining. It's the team you're with. My second rotation, I didn't have a particularly good team, and I ended up requesting to transfer to theatre, which is where I had always wanted to go, but I wanted to do my year on the ward, so I had my time management, my observation, my medication calculations, and all of those things a bit more down pat, because you don't do a lot of that when you go to theatre. It's a kind of a different ball game. And so I got transferred to theatre. They were very good, let me transfer, and then went to theatre and never left. So rotated through adults, kids, then obstetrics, gynae, fetal maternal. Then I wanted to learn cardiac, thoracic, vascular. So went to what is now St Vincent's Northside, so that I could do cardiac particularly. But cardiac call is not great when you have young children. So then I went to a day hospital for a little while, and then always stayed casual at the Mater, and then went back there and sort of did a little bit more of the gynae, obstetrics, fetal maternal, which I really enjoyed, and spent half my roster doing sort of team leading in charge, which is a good challenge as well. And then I've also done a postgrad in theatre, perioperative nursing, and I did a master's, and then kind of this job happened, and I have the opportunity to engage with our membership and advocate for change within our profession. I'm working with a number of different placements at the moment, places, engaging with the members, and advocating with health departments and HHSs, which is challenging and interesting. And we've got a table with the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission, so we can raise issues with aged care on behalf of our members. So there's a whole lot of different things that we can do. What else have I got on my thing? And probably what I love the most about nursing is the team that you end up working with. I also find the human body absolutely fascinating. And nursing is so versatile. There's so many different things you can do. You can work on the wards, you can do postgrads, you can do education, you can do clinical nursing, you can do all different types of specialties, you can do nurse assisting, you can become a nurse practitioner, you can travel and do rural remote. There's so many different things you can do. And advice for new grads is you have a lot of knowledge already that you probably don't realise that you have, and it can be quite daunting. So you don't want to be underconfident, you don't also want to be overconfident, and there's a lot to learn that just takes time. So I think if you realise that there's things you have to learn and that they will take time to develop those skills, and there are a lot of nurses that have a lot of experience. And basically, it's just like anything. If you find people that you connect with, that you aspire to be like, you basically just follow them around and you'll absorb and you'll learn that information. Don't be too hard on yourself. You may have a few tears here and there because it's quite overwhelming, but basically it's just time. And like I remember walking around, finding myself in the pen room instead of the medication room because I was so disorientated. It doesn't take that long till you're 20, 25 years down the track. So it's a great job, and enjoy it.
Thanks so much, Clara. I am going to introduce you guys to Cashel. Cashel, you tell us a little bit about yourself and any advice you have for our new grads.
Yep, sure. I'm Cashel. I've done nursing for 20 years with breaks with having kids and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to get a grad program after I finished. I worked at Ipswich Hospital and they did a rotating grad program, which I found really helpful. It meant I could experience several different departments and got a taste of what was available to me within the hospital. Just because I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to specialise in. So I rotated through a medical ward specialising in respiratory. That was hard work, but it really honed my time management skills. So yeah, just if you get a placement that you're not happy with, I would say there are skills to learn in all areas that you're given. And it won't be the only area that you're ever in or exposed to, but it does really teach you some valuable skills and appreciation for other staff in different wards. The next placement I had was in a surgical ward, and then, yeah, that just honed my obs skills and quick turnaround of patients. And then I worked in the MAPU short stay unit attached to the emergency, but I found my love in emergency, which was my fourth placement. And I got the job after my grad year in emergency, and that's where I've specialised in. That's where I specialised in for 10 years. And I moved around within that, but the areas in which I was working, it was helpful for me to just make sure capitalized on the education opportunities that were in each of those departments. So when I was in emergency, I made sure I put my name down for the trauma courses, and for the pediatric resus courses, and yeah, those kind of education programs. I did rotate out from Ipswich Emergency and moved to the Martyr Kids Emergency before it was QCH. And I was there for 5 years, and I got trained in triage and resus management, and that was a good experience to give me a taste of the pediatric side, which is very different. Then I moved over to QCH for a little bit, but found the balance of shift work and small children tricky. So a colleague in emergency had become a boss in refugee health, and so I moved over that way, more for the hours of flexibility, and that was really helpful in terms of having a bigger picture of a patient's journey, understanding a little bit more of their social needs, and communication needs, and how we communicate as health professionals to people. Yeah. Again, I did more study and specialised in that area too. I did a child health nursing certificate, which then helped in my next job, which I'm currently in. I'm specialised in child health nursing in an Indigenous community centre. So the combination of the paediatric emergency and emergency skills gives me those quick assessments. The child health helps with the development, and just the refugee health nursing gave me a better appreciation for the cultural differences and good communication. Yeah, so you're always learning as a nurse. I would say in your first year, yeah, like Cara said, find the people who you gel with and who are willing to take the time. There are some who aren't, and that's okay. That's their personality, but it's not helpful to be around those people if you're going to feel squashed and unable and lacking confidence, I suppose, or lacking the exposure to the skills in which you need to finish your year. But you're always learning, so don't stress about trying to get it all finished in the grad year. Just take it as the opportunity to hone what you can in those areas, reflect on what you do know already, as Ella said in her slides, and yeah, ask questions and be honest, because you'll be given responsibility by the nurse in charge with you, and if you break the trust by not doing with you or saying, I actually don't have those skills, could you talk me through it, it will make it harder for you to learn. Yeah. Yeah, my first year, though, with my grad nursing, there were moments of overwhelm, particularly in the medical ward, where there's high expectations and fast turnarounds, and your time management skills just need work and time. So hang in there and take the holidays.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks so much, Cashel. All right, it's my turn. So as I said, my name is Ella. I graduated 9 years ago now, and I don't have any medical background in my family. I never worked as an AIN. My mum was a dentist. It's probably the closest thing to it. And when I told her I wanted to be a nurse, she said, I don't know, that's a good idea. You're not very compassionate. So I didn't have anybody who I could talk to about this whole journey. I just decided to choose it. And then when I graduated, I actually decided to take, it was supposed to be a half gap year. Also, if you guys want to ask questions, please start chucking them in the chat so we can get straight to them once we finish talking. Anyway, I wanted to take 6 months off. I'd had a bit of a traumatic experience outside of work where I'd been a first responder to a long-term family friend. And I was currently on my placement in an emergency department, my final placement at the time. And I just set a little goal for myself that I just need to finish my degree and then I'll take a bit of time to just have some time for me. And anyway, basically I missed intakes and it was all chaotic, and I didn't realize that things opened when they did, because mid-year intakes are very different to beginning of year intakes. So I actually completely missed out on the mid-year intake the next year, and then had to wait till the year after. I'd started panicking, like a lot of people I speak to do, because they think, oh my goodness, I haven't secured anything and now I'm heading into my second year out of uni and I haven't got something yet. So I applied for the beginning of the next year, and I only got offered one position, and it was at the time it was called Lady Salento. So it's now Queensland Children's Hospital, formerly Mater Children's. And I am from a large family. I'm the eldest of 8 children. So I had no interest in working with sick kids, because I had not a romanticized view of what sick children are like. I know that they're pretty miserable and parents are stressed. But also, like a lot of people we speak to who say, I've been offered something and I'm not that keen on it. Well, I just took it because I didn't want to be in the position I had been for the whole previous year of not having something. And I was looking at agency and aged care and anything else I would have to do to start my nursing career. So I got the call, and it was also a bit late. So there's people who I speak to as well who are always worried about whether they're hearing back or not. They told me when they'd call me, and they didn't call me then. It was weeks and weeks after that. So there's a lot of people there sorting through. So do give them a bit of time to get in touch with you, or do follow up with them. You can send them an email or give them a phone call, which is what I did. Anyway, I started my grad program, and I was extremely naive about nursing when I started studying. Somehow I thought hospitals closed or something. Like, I didn't even know night shift was a thing, because I'd never talked to a nurse before. So that was a bit of a rude shock. I had a very steep learning curve. I started my grad program in, it was a neurology, neurosurge and orthopedic ward. It was very heavy. There were actually quite a lot of men who worked on the ward, and I found that kind of, it sounds terrible, but it did break up a bit of the clickiness that can happen in nursing areas. I really loved it, but it was very stressful, and I felt sick most days at work. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And I had to ask for a lot of support. I'm a bit of as I said earlier, I'm a hands-on learner. So all of this reading and stuff in lectures and tutorials did not really help me. I mean, it was probably in there somewhere, but until you're doing the same thing over and over again, it really doesn't sink in. And also, like, you will have that experience again. If I got picked up and dumped in Kara's theatre wards, I would have no idea what I'm doing, and I would feel the exact same way I did in my first week as a grad, except maybe with a few more skills. But if you haven't worked in an area, you're actually not going to know a hell of a lot about it. And the different meds, different sorts of assessments, different things you focus on, different demographics, all sorts of things. So you're constantly learning in nursing, and you're not going to just suddenly do your grad year and feel like you can, fly. You'll have an idea of a certain area, and then if you move, you're kind of going to start that process again. But I was one of the last cohorts at the Children's Hospital where we did 2 compulsory rotations. So my first one was surgical, and then my second one I went to a day medical unit where we did infusions and allergy testing. And I thought it was a lot more scientific than it actually is. Well, it's scientific, but I mean, I thought it was a lot more complex, but you actually just feed the child the thing they're allergic to and see what happens in a controlled environment, which was very interesting. And then, learned to cannulate there. You're not allowed to cannulate children in children's hospitals unless you have a special qualification, or in our particular ward. So that was a really awesome opportunity for me. After that, they decided to rebuild a ward in our hospital. And I'm an absolute creature of comfort. Like, I would have gotten that job in the neurosurge orthopedic ward and stayed there till I died if I hadn't have been forced to move, because I like to just stay doing the same thing. I don't have this, like, I want to travel the world with nursing mentality. So it was good for me to rotate. And, you know, you're not going to know. People say I'm a surgical nurse through and through and they've never worked in medical. You can't know until you've tried. And I actually really loved the medical ward. But I ended up splitting my hours between the two of them. And then they rebuilt another ward and we all had to reapply for our jobs in that area. So I didn't get it back where I'd been working in the orthopedic area. I got put in an oncology overflow and rheumatology ward, which I really, really didn't like at all. Some people do really, you know, oncology nurses are a special breed. It wasn't even, for me, it wasn't just that it's really horrible seeing families go through that. But I also, you know, I'd worked in other areas where some of these kids do come out the other side of this, whereas I'd worked in medical wards where these children are, you know, set for a lifetime of dealing with this no matter what treatment you give them. So my heart was kind of more there, and I don't think that that gets as much, I don't know, like public sympathy, and all of the toys got sent to the oncology ward, all of the, you know, celebrities go to the oncology ward, but all of these other little ones didn't sort of get the same attention. So I did really love being there. I found it really overwhelming. So I had to take it every day at a time. As I said earlier, it took me 8 months to feel comfortable walking into work, that I turned up to work thinking I'm not terrified of what they're going to allocate me today. And the advice I gave you about focusing on what you do know, like I remember walking into the handover room and I'd been given a patient who had a chest drain. And I'd never looked after a chest drain, so I just, with a pain in the team leader's neck, and said, I can't look after this patient. And she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know how to look after chest drains. And it was my really supportive nurse educator on the ward who said, well, what if I work with you today and give you the support to learn how to do that, and then maybe you can get signed off on chest drains and you'll be able to look after it. So I had to shift my thinking a bit. Like, you know, I wasn't being proactive or helpful in my just saying I can't do this. And that really changed my grad year from that point on doing that. The imposter syndrome is huge to begin with. I remember suddenly, I was in my second week, so you get, depending on where you end up with your job. So I was with Queensland Health, you have a few shifts that are supernumerary. So you have a patient load, but you also have an RN assigned to you who doesn't have their own patient load, and they are there to shadow you and help you so you can ask them questions and they're not being dragged off to do other stuff. And that was wildly helpful. And then after that, for a couple of weeks, you will be allocated in certain hospitals buddy shifts. So you'll have an allocated nurse who you know is the person who's supposed to be keeping an eye. They have their own patient load, but they are there to support you through those 2 weeks. So there is definitely that support. And then they have the grad education days. So you know, every hospital uses different pumps, different IV pumps and all sorts of things. They did an education day off ward where you get to play around with feeding pumps and, you know, priming lines, doing all this sort of stuff. I don't know about you guys, but like the practicals at university were just so not authentic for what you actually experience in the hospital. I had never pierced a IV vial that had not already been had the vacuum taken out of it. So when I went to draw up my first antibiotic, it exploded everywhere because I hadn't dealt with that before, that it was still pressurized. And like my placements were not really great. I had very unhelpful nurses. I also just I'd never put in a nasogastric tube or an IDC. I hadn't had really much experience with IV meds. I'd done oral meds. So I really thought going into my grad year, I'm going to be so behind, but they actually don't really expect a lot from you other than that you're safe and that you'll tell them what you need help or what you don't know. And so they don't think you're going to know everything. I started doing a lot of precepting after I finished my grad year and had a couple of years experience. And as soon as you get a new grad, you just think, I need to take you under my wing and like make you feel comfortable here until you find your feet, because you know that they are going through what you went through. And yeah, so I had my supernumerary shifts, I had my buddy shifts, and then I came off those and I was on my night shifts, and I got told to go pick up this patient from ED who was a 2-year-old kid who'd fallen out of a window onto concrete. And they were querying like back injuries, like spinal injuries and things like that. Anyway, I went down to pick him up, and I just remember the feeling standing outside the room and looking into this ED cubicle, and he had his whole family around him, and they just looked so relieved when they saw me, and they're like, oh, we're going to the ward, we're in a safe place. And I thought, this is so scary because this is like my 3rd week here and I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's just what happens. It's part of the job, and you do have other people around you. Like, that's where you go back to, if I'm concerned and something's wrong, I would get help. There's the Met buzzer there. It's not, you're not alone. Like, you feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders, but you're part of a team. And as Cara said, it really does depend on your team as well. But you just speaking up and following your gut feeling will be a big game changer. And then I think from hearing from the other girls, it's really shown you like you can have an idea of where you want to think you want to go with nursing, and then it'll take you somewhere else. You just never know. So go in with an open mind. You will never learn anything and regret knowing it. It'll come up in another area and all of those sort of things. So really enjoy it. It's an exciting but stressful year ahead of you. And, you know, we're always here if you guys want to contact us and ask any questions, because I know I love running these sessions, because at uni I felt I couldn't ask questions because they'd think, oh, gee, we're marking your assignments, and it's a pretty stupid question to be asking. And then I got my grad program and I thought, these are people I'm working with and they'll also be worried. So I do love that we are a totally non-biased external area that you can ask any question you want, and we will not be judging in any way, because we've been there, and I want you guys to take advantage of that. I think that is basically it from me. We might dive into questions. So there'll be ones that have been chucked in the chat, but I might just start with the ones that were pre-submitted first. So Cara and Cashel, if anything jumps out at you that you want to add, please do just start talking over the top of me. So I had quite a few questions asking about tips on career progression, further studies, and what study you should be doing leading up to your grad year and during your grad year. I am really big on you not seeking out to do more. You've just finished 3 years or more of study, and it's exhausting, and you will just have so much learning to do this year. There are people who will totally ignore that advice and are really hungry and want to go and get grad certificates or whatever, and you can do that, but my strong advice would be take a bit of a break from trying to make it harder for yourself. It's one of those things where you should be I would be focusing your extra time, especially in the lead up to your grad program, of getting some systems in place at home that will make your home life easier, so that when you come home, you're not like, oh, I've got a heap of laundry and I haven't done any meal prep and I'm eating pizza for dinner again and all of that sort of stuff. Like, just try and have some things in place that mean when you come home that you can unwind, process how your day went, and enjoy your year for the most part, because it will be stressful and you're not coming home and having to study more and do assignments. Do you girls agree with that? You're muted, Cashel. Yes, she agrees. Okay. So,
and usually if you're on a grad, sorry, can you hear? I think there's
we can hear
you. Of stuff you're supposed to do now. It's a lot different than the grad program when I started, where they have you do all sorts of different things that I think qualifies you for 2 subjects or something along those lines. It's quite a lot more involved than it was when I started a long time ago. So probably if you're working full time in a grad program, doing that education and then trying to do like a perioperative certificate or some kind of study on top of that, it would be quite challenging. So
yeah, and I was in a similar boat in that pediatrics isn't really covered a lot at uni, and so you kind of go in blind. Children's bodies are very different to adult bodies. Oh my goodness, they just like react so differently. They compensate for so long, they crash really fast. Their OBS are completely different. Like the OBS for a child, if you saw them in an adult, you'd kind of like just leave the room almost. You're like, oh, this is terrible. No, you would never do that. But you know, it's such a different world. So I did have units I had to do through the hospital, and they did equal to postgrad units actually as well. And you know, we had some exams and study days and things like that. So I definitely was not keen to do it. Penny, I saw you say something about, you know, the pressure. They cannot force you to do a postgrad. You have to look after yourself, you know. So if you don't want to do a postgrad now, enjoy your grad year and focus on that. Do not go and do a postgrad because someone's pressured you into doing it. You know, that's them trying to meet some other criteria. That's not your problem at this point in time. Cashel, were you going to say something?
In terms of study, I think there's lots of skills that you're building on. So you're doing chest drain, like you said, chest drain modules, and you're just trying to build the practical skills that you need on the ward. I love studying, but I didn't actually undertake any formal study until 2 years after I graduated, including my grad year. So I would recommend just work on the hospital, what are they called now? The hospital education packages for the different learning that you need within each ward. First year, because time management and work.
Yeah, it's anyway, I think obviously you'll do whatever you want to do, but I would just try and take it easy this year. We had a lot of questions from people who haven't got grad programs yet. Look, we do cover that more in another session. This is to try and prepare people for what to expect. But do feel free to send us messages. You know, if you are freshly graduated, you do have a bit of time to apply in other areas, but you do not need to have a grad program as an RN. It is not compulsory. It's nice and it's great to have the support, but you can start working, like applying for jobs anywhere. Think outside the box a little bit, and do fill out the form at the end as well, and we'll try and help you in any way we can. Yeah.
As with applying for jobs, even now, sometimes you can apply for jobs and under the proviso that you will do a grad cert. So once you've had the exam, things like that, you can then apply for other jobs and say, yes, I will undertake that, and then do it at a pace which suits you, depending on the workplace.
Yeah, you'll just need to do a bit of research around that. How to manage staff conflict and bullying as a new graduate. Look, so obviously here at the NPAQ or NPAA, sorry, rather, we are able to help you navigate those things. I think that some people contact us wanting us to just be like their strong arm and do a lot of stuff for them, and they get upset if we say, well, have you tried having a conversation with these people? Because imagine if you'd had an interaction with someone and you weren't even aware that it was bad, and the next thing they've brought in a representative to talk to you and you're like, whoa, that's not like, that's gone from 0 to hero. So sometimes it could be just asking your NUM for some advice. It could be navigating certain employees. There are people who you will look at and think, I don't know why you ever started nursing. You're kind of horrible and you don't seem to like people, but they're there and there's nothing you can do about it, and you're going to have to work with them. There are horrible people everywhere. So nursing is no different, but there are also really wonderful people everywhere, and nursing seems to attract a lot of those. So you will have some horrible shifts with people who are not nice to work with. You just kind of got to get through it, but you do have to stand up for yourself. So we get a lot of, and you get to choose what sort of nurse you're going to be now, because if you set the tone for, say, we had someone contact us because they'd had a really unpleasant experience after refusing to check a med with a nurse when the nurse had prepared, I think, a bag of potassium or something, and just said, oh, I want you to you come and give this to a patient with me. And they're like, I don't want to do that. And this nurse was really horrible to them. If you compromise in that first instance, you will have that situation again. Not only are you doing the wrong thing and you're risking your registration, but you're also setting a precedent that you're the type of nurse who will do that, and you will get targeted to be checked dodgy meds all the time. You will have one initial really uncomfortable encounter, and that person's never going to come back and ask you to check that again. And you do have to kind of raise these concerns as well with, whether it's a RITS man or your manager. Work is work. You're not necessarily there to make friends. You have to protect your registration. These horrible nurses who you encounter are not going to be there if you will take the fall for it. And you got to look after yourself and get a bit comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're not going to only have uncomfortable conversations with your colleagues, but you might have uncomfortable conversations with your patients too. Because ultimately you'll have people who are refusing to cooperate with things, or don't want to get out of bed, or don't want to shower, or have their meds, or whatever. You're going to have to start having these conversations, and there's just no easy way to do it. You just got to sort of dive in. You can ask for advice from your senior nurses about specific situations. But if it is actual bullying, and you can always contact us and we'll talk you through it. We're very, very well versed in dealing with these sort of situations, and we will absolutely help you out with that. Are you allowed to defer the grad year and come back the following year? That is completely up to your workplace. I mean, I saw heaps of different, one of the girls I started a grad program with went through a really horrible divorce, and they allowed her to drop back to like 0.4 or something in her grad year. It is absolutely a case-by-case basis. And even like with the, say if it's persistent staff conflict, you can even talk to someone. It's having the conversation. Talk to your num. There might be a grad in another area who's interested in swapping with you and coming into the area you're working in. There are options, but you need to talk to people to see what the options are. And choosing your rotations, yeah, unlikely. I mean, you put your preferences in, they'll take that into account to the best of their ability, but you kind of will just be placed somewhere, and then you'll have more options once you've gotten that year's experience, and you can apply for different areas. Or if it's really, really bad, you can talk to your manager and see about swapping. Do you receive a job in the ward you placed in? No, not necessarily. So when I finished my grad year, we were all sent a survey, and you just had to fill that out of what your preference was, if you wanted to stay in the same position, if you wanted a full-time position, etc. And then the only people who were not offered jobs in the hospital were the people who didn't bother to fill in the survey. They just were really lazy about it, and so they finished their grad year and didn't have a job. But I was not offered a permanent position for a couple of years. So permanent positions are taken up by people on secondment, on maternity leave. They only have a certain amount of them that they can offer you, and so you have to wait for one to become available. But I worked contracts. For a little while, I was working 3-month contracts, which was really terrible for planning ahead. But that was what I had, and I had work. So there's heaps of opportunity to do overtime and things like that. You'll have plenty of work, but it may not be a permanent position straight up out of your grad year. But other people might. So that really does depend on your workplace. Do you girls have anything to add to that? No.
Yeah, just reiterating.
Yeah.
You said you can't necessarily choose, and you just have to take the opportunities and positives with each environment that you're working with.
Do you have a patient load your first day? Your first day, a couple of days will probably be orientation, and you'll be finding out about, you'll be signing paperwork, and, they'll be telling you a bit about the hospital and the values, and you might go and say hi to your num. You wouldn't usually have a patient load on your absolute first day, but, it'll happen pretty quickly. Depending on the workplace, you might have a supernumerary shift or two like I did. It'll really depend, but you will have support. There's a program in place for a reason, and they don't expect you to just walk in and know how to do everything. What are you grateful for or regret from your first year? Oof. Gee, I think we kind of covered a few things. I'm grateful for the people I worked with, but also just, I suppose, the people who told me the hard truths, the conversations that were hard to have. where someone said something. It's not nice being told that you didn't do something right, or you need to pull your socks up. I remember my manager told me one day, she's like, you always look like you're going to the beach. Like you just sort of walk around like you're not in a rush. And I'm like, oh dear, like I don't want to look like I don't care about my job. And a couple of months later, she's like, you finally woken up. Something clicked in the last 2 months and you're just on top of it. And then she gave me an acting CN position. So it was horrible being told that I looked like I was just on a holiday and just cruising around. Oh Lord. But I was really grateful for that feedback. And then just, I suppose the opportunity is to really step outside my comfort zone. I'll probably tell a bit of a story later about one of the specific instances where I just had to challenge myself. And I think I really loved seeing how strong I can be. I just didn't realize how much I can push myself to outside of my comfort zone. Cashel?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the diversity of my grad year, having the opportunity to do both medical, surgical, and short stay. Gave me a lot of the skills that I needed for emergency, and I was really thankful for that. I had a couple of people that supported me really well, and we're still friends. But I think the thing I regret is not speaking out sooner or asking for help sooner. I thought I could try and manage it, and then when it all got too much, it was very overwhelming. So that's why asking for help soon is a good advice.
Cara?
Super regret anything. I enjoyed that I got the 2 rotations and that I was very unhappy on my second ward, not because I didn't like what I was doing. I actually really quite enjoyed orthopedic surgical. But I was disappointed there were quite a few of the nursing staff on that ward, very difficult for a new grad. And I, at the time, I guess I was quite young, newly out, didn't really know how to deal with it or where I could go to talk about it. And perhaps I should have sought out like support from an association or anything like that. But I think because I had already planned to go to theatre, I just brought that plan forward a little bit more. But as nurses going in, I don't know if you've ever seen that comedy thing about nurses eating, but I think we have an opportunity to make or break people and workplaces in how we choose to behave and engage and step up next to people. And also oftentimes you find new grads, you want to encourage and support, but you also want to hold them. Hopefully you have people that will hold you and lift you by giving expectations, because oftentimes people will reach expectations rather than you expecting too little of them. And I think it was my 3rd year out, I had one of the nurses who I greatly respected, one of the CNs. She sort of took me aside, and I had been, I think, surrounded by quite a number of nurses that had probably been in the one area too long, had become a little bit not as proactive as they perhaps could have been, and you sometimes absorb. And she had a little bit of a conversation to me, and it was a bit of a change in trajectory in how I wanted to conduct myself as a nurse. And it wasn't long after that, I guess you step up to what sometimes the expectations somebody puts on you, and you have that opportunity to take and go, yes, I can do better than this. And I really actually appreciated that she took the time to say that. think I was only 2 or 3 years out, and had quite a number of rotations and a lot of changes in quite a short period of time. And then I kind of went, yeah, I'm going to step up. I'm going to take the opportunities that are available to me. I'm going to make sure I'm somebody that everybody wants to work with, that I work hard, that I'm on top of it, that I'm the first to offer. I got involved in a postgrad. I reached out so I could learn other specialties that I wanted to learn. So just take it where you can and step into it with a mindset that I'm going to be somebody that people want to work with, that my patients, are glad that you're there. And you get to a point where you rock up at work and you're the team leaders and the doctors go, oh, thank God, you're on. So be that nurse.
Yeah, and this is the time you get to choose that, and like remember how you feel now, and that the next generation of nurses are going to be where you are, and you want to be the sort of nurse you want, the person that you have in your brain that you hope is on the ward. You can be that person for the next round of nurses coming through. So make sure you do that. Chloe was just asking about NUMs, and if you have a conflict with your NUM. Well, depends on the level of it, but please do contact your union or your association like us for help if it is really bad, and we'll talk you through it. Obviously depends on the actual situation. We had lots of questions about transitioning from student to graduate. How do you cope with it? Building confidence, your knowledge, your skills, keeping it all in your brain. I think we kind of said it is time. It's not a really great answer, but it is just the case. Like, you're not going to know what you need to know until you start working. You're not going to know what you don't know until you start working. But if you are working on a specialised unit, there'll be meds that you give. Yes, the first few times you're going to have to be looking up your MIMS or your rainbow book over and over and over and over again, and figuring out what it's for and what, how to give it and blah, blah, blah. But once you've given that med 5,000 times, you will remember. Like, you'll think about it in your sleep. You'll actually, sometimes I see number plate and your abbreviation stuff. I'll see a number plate and I cannot see it as something that's not work related on a handover sheet because you've read it so many times. So it'll just become part of you. You just have to wait. But dealing with the transition, like, just, you'll have a buddy nurse, you'll have a NUM, you'll have CNs. Check in with them and just ask them for advice and feedback if they've worked with you, because that's probably the best way to find out how you're going. But just be a bit patient with yourself. There's no way of rushing it. You just need to take note of what you need to work on. Building strong relationships with the senior nurses and other teams. Obviously, being the sort of nurse that people want to work with, a huge thing that I found really frustrating when I started precepting grads was them just, so they'd ask for help, which is great, but kind of totally disregard how busy you were. There are things that you would be able to do that can help the other nurses you work with. So say if you have a med that you're struggling with or a dressing or something, you can say to the RN, hey, I'll help you check all of your 12 o'clock meds and, do your midday obs if you can help me do this. And there's a bit of give and take there, because that frees them up to help you. And it's not like a really complicated thing for you to do, but you're showing, like, I'm not just expecting you to just drop everything and help me. We're a team here. So really do that sort of stuff. There was a grad who, she was usually very behind, and then one day she said to me, I've realised why I'm struggling. It's because I don't delegate my task properly. And so she would go on her tea break and she'd leave you a litany of stuff to do for her patients, which some of them could absolutely wait until she'd finished her 20-minute tea break, but she'd stand there with her list of stuff and like, now I'd like you to do this, this, and this, and this while I'm on tea. I'm like, what do you think this is? Like, and she did it for a while and she didn't win any friends with it. And we had to end up talking to her and say, look, it's all good, well and good if you're going on your lunch break and there's something time sensitive that needs to be done and you really haven't gotten to it, but you don't just suddenly hand off all of your tasks to other people because you're going on tea. Like, and she wasn't offering to do that for other people when they went on tea. She just expected her stuff to be done. So yeah, don't do that sort of stuff. Try and be part of the team, helpful. You've got something you can offer, even if it doesn't feel like it at this point. You will be able to free up people to help you. What are effective ways to ask for feedback? Honestly, just asking, just saying, I want to know how I'm going. And handling constructive criticism, it's always going to feel a bit crap, hearing that you're not doing something very well. It sits uncomfortably, but the fact that you're asking, it just shows so much growth and self-awareness and desire to be better. And what you do with that information is key. So me being told I look like I'm going to the beach and don't really care about my job, I have to do something about that. Like, it's not, and it doesn't feel good. And then you turn up to work a few times thinking, oh, I'm so self-conscious about the way I'm walking. Like, I'm very tall and I sort of stick my hands in pockets. And, I had to just start being more self-aware. So, yeah, you just got to kind of take it on the chin unless you think it's really unfair. And feel free to check back in if you're wanting to sort of clarify something that you feel like you might have misunderstood. I know we are a bit over time, so I'm going to try and bust through these. Avoid feeling overwhelmed with how to avoid feeling overwhelmed with multiple complex patients. Honestly, doing your planners is pretty big. But also, yeah, focusing, like, you will know what's most important, but you can ask for advice. Sometimes you will get to the end of a shift and some of your patients haven't had a shower because you just haven't had time. As long as you have escalated to your team leader, because there are workload forms and things like that to fill out if you are actually not coping and it's an actual ward thing. But asking for help is a big one, and you'll figure out how to prioritize stuff and group your cares together. So if you have on your planner that I need to go in and drain that IDC at this time, look at what else you could do while you're in there. Like, you don't give all your 12 o'clock meds at 12 o'clock because I don't know about you, but I can't buy Lidocaine. So you're going to have to think, right, well, while I'm in there, it might be 20 to 12. I'm going to start doing all of these other things, and by the time I'm done, it'll be midday and I can give the meds or do the IDC or whatever. No, it's not give the meds. So like drain the IDC on time and then you can get out of there. But it's grouping your cares together will definitely change the way your day goes. Common mistakes new grads make. Well, I think we've covered a few of those. It's really crap, but it's very likely you will make a medication error. I made a medication error. I don't know about you ladies. It's a really horrible feeling when you realise you've done it. Mine was luckily underdosing, not overdosing. You've got to be honest about it. But we're humans, and that's, I think, what's scary. Like, other people in other professions might make a mistake and it might be like, oh, I sent the wrong email to the wrong person. Whereas this is like, I put something inside someone else's body and I don't know what I did, what's happening now. So you'll be tired. I remember my first time doing 3 12-hour night shifts in a row, and I actually went home and accidentally shut my car boot on my housemate's head. Like, I don't know how it happened. She fell on the floor and I thought, I've killed her. Like, you just won't be able to, you won't know how you deal with your night shifts or, stress, all that sort of stuff until you're in it. But yeah, being honest and really taking time on your days off to try and rest. I probably wasn't very, I love socializing. So I was always like, oh, on my days off, I need to go do something. Some days you might just need a day at home to catch up on sleep and meal prep and stuff like that. Like, your first year, I think you do need to socialize and try and have that outlet, but you definitely need a bit of time to recoup and process and things like that. Yes, if you would like to work on the ward you're currently working on, have a conversation with your NUM before the end of your grad year. Like, start asking those questions and showing interest. They'll be looking for the grads that they want to keep as well. So they absolutely have that conversation. is it necessary to get insurance? Yes, we covered that at the beginning. Tips for surviving shift work. That will really be depending on you. Like, I don't know if you girls had anything that you remember worked for you. I knew certain times of the night I needed to eat something so I didn't feel sick on night shifts. And another thing is the people who do these rosters and they've got 60 people on a ward, they might make a mistake. And if you see, oh, I've got a night shift and a sleep day, and then I'm expected back at 7 a.m. the next day, but I have like a shift break agreement, raise it with them as soon as the roster comes out, not the week you're about to start working and they have to find somebody. You don't just have to hack the roster you get if it's actually wrong. Like, it's not if you don't like it, they will make mistakes. So make sure that you're not working an unsafe roster that is not actually required of you. Do you guys have any tips for shift working?
I found night duty the hardest. I would get really sick and sometimes vomit. So I just knew that if I had lined up my breaks on the point where my blood sugar dropped, essentially, I could just have a 15-minute sleep. And I pre-warned all of my colleagues, so just communicating about it. But just really do some good reading on circadian rhythm and some of the research about what night shifts do to your body. And I'm quite social as well, so putting the limits on yourself or asking other people to hold you to account on putting those limits in is a good idea.
Nursing is terrible for your health. There's just no way around it. Staying up for 12 hours overnight for 3 nights in a row and then suddenly going back to doing a different sleep routine is so terrible for you, but there's just nothing you can do about it. You've sort of signed yourself up to it. You might find a job that doesn't work like that in nursing, and that's really great, but it's sort of the way it is, unfortunately, until they find a magic pill to make night shift not so horrible.
I have to say, I personally find doing all my nights in a row better. Like, I'd prefer to do 3 or 4 nights in a row for my month allocation than splitting them up, because you can flip. And then I always get night duty belly. I don't tend to eat too much on night duty because I end up bloated and pain and all this stuff. Everybody calls it night duty belly. So you just have to work out what you can and can't eat and when you can and can't eat and all the rest of it. But and I can't say I have never used over-the-counter sleeping tablets, which, so that you can get some sleep, and air conditioning and eye masks so that you can darkness. And I would often sleep with noise-cancelling headphones and put your phone on airplane mode so nobody can contact you. You've got
That's stuff you can start doing now. Hey, like, go and get the block-out curtains and go and get stuff at home. Like, make sure if you don't have aircon, have a U fan, something. Like, you'll need to figure out how you be more aware of it. If you're at home during the day, do I have a neighbor that has a really noisy dog that barks all day and is going to keep me awake? Like, I can sleep through anything. It's amazing. I was really terrified when I had my first baby that I wouldn't wake up, but something happens to your body when you just do. Like, I could sleep through the neighbors mowing, but there are people who do need headphones. They need to, make sure you've told your, boyfriend not to bother you during the day, let me sleep. Like, it's really important. So, or your husband or whatever, like, you just need to let people know, but also set the boundaries yourself and make sure you do try and sleep, because there's just nothing that can speed up that as well. Do you have to do simulations? You will do simulations not just in your grad year, but throughout your whole nursing career in a hospital if they have the capacity to do them. Simulations, I hated them. I hated them so much. As soon as I saw them coming onto the ward saying that they're doing one, I just sort of, ugh. But they are so good in that they're just preparing you for a situation so instead of thinking, like, I used used to be the person in the first few simulations in my grad year where I'd be like, I'll write the obs down. I'll stand back here and I'll write the obs down because I don't want to be involved in like running around doing airway and stuff like that because I felt judged and terrified. But the whole point is when this actually happens in real life, you want to know what you're doing because that's scarier than the simulation. And these things do happen. So get into your simulations. They're actually a really cool opportunity. And you'll find that the senior nurses sometimes feel just as out of depth as you do because you don't deal with a met call necessarily every day unless you're in ED or a really high acuity area. It may happen once in a blue moon and you want to know what you're doing because there's nothing worse than a messy met call when something's really, really seriously happening.
I enjoyed simulation for the ability to reflect really well. So if you go in it thinking you're being judged, you're not going to learn anything from it. But if you go into it going, what can I learn from it? I found that really helpful, and it's impacted the whole of my life. It's not work related, particularly the resus simulations when you go into those, and you watch yourself panic and freak out and not notice things around you. You realize how much adrenaline actually has a role in blocking your brain and abilities. So I then went from that learning skills to regulate my adrenaline, breathing, and making sure if I felt overwhelmed to do 5 deep breaths, because 5 deep breaths take 10 seconds, and in a resus situation, that's okay. It was really good. I enjoyed them after I had reflected on them better.
Yeah. And another thing I found grads would sometimes, and students, and everybody gets a bit hesitant about pressing the Met buzzer unnecessarily, or like, is it a Met? You will regret not pressing it in a situation that, crashes than pressing it and it wasn't necessary. So you have a gut feeling for a reason, and sometimes that will be like, I was looking after this kid on a night shift. He had a VP shunt, which is like drains excess CSF off if they have an overproduction and builds up like the pressure in there. And anyway, he had gone to get his replaced because it had been blocked. And you will have, if you're working in kids, you'll have parents who are unhelpful with their information, but then they are also the people who do know the child the best. And so she said, he's not himself. He's really not himself. And I had to watch this kid. And then as the night went on, I felt there's something wrong. Like the numbers look all good. His obs are great. He's waking up when I wake him up, but something's just so not right with him. And I rang the doctor and asked for a review, and he's like, I'm not coming until he's vomiting or something, which means the pressure's that bad that this kid. And I said, well, I'm going to be pressing a Met buzzer if you don't come. And that is where you find your strength as well, is if you're talking to a very grumpy registrar or a consultant on a night shift and they are barking down the phone at you, it's really horrible, but you don't have to be friends with them. You're here to represent your patient and make sure they're safe. And I was 100% right. He wanted to keep pushing off this patient until the daytime so that it wasn't his problem. But at 3 a.m., this kid had to be rushed off to emergency surgery because he vomited. As soon as he vomited, I'd already gotten the doctor up to review, and it happened while the doctor was there because I threatened the Met call. And this kid went straight back because they kinked the new one that they put in. And it was just such a good moment for me to realize I wasn't crazy. But even if I had have been like one shift, I also had just come on and I was receiving handover and I had my allocation, but then suddenly they put this child in a bay that I was looking after and they didn't say anything to me. They said, oh, so-and-so from down the hall will be here to hand him over in a second. I didn't know this kid's name at all. And look at him in the bed and like, he looks terrible. Why is he in here? Like, oh, he needs closer observation because they're a bit worried about him. And I had to go over and press a Met buzzer on someone I didn't even know the name of who was supposed to be in my care. And that was like a really messy Met call. And then the nurse who was handing over was wanting to go home. Everyone's annoyed at me, but it doesn't matter. Like the Met buzzer is there for a reason, and you'll get the support you need, because it shouldn't just be you dealing with the situation, and you'll get the assessments happening that need to happen rather than just waiting until it's really bad, you know. So that's sort of my 2 cents worth. And then lastly, if I can't find a job, how will it affect my ARPA registration? That sort of falls into the category of people who haven't gotten one yet. But no, it shouldn't. You can keep, obviously it becomes a point where you do need to get a job, but it's not going, you'll just have to pay for your ARPA registration again and have not used it. Unfortunately, it's not a pro rata thing. It's you apply for it at the beginning of the year when you start working, and you have to pay for it again in May. It really sucks, but that's just the way they set it up. And I might just close with one last story, which is something from my grad year that I found pushing through when you really don't feel like it as well, which happens a lot. I had a patient who had all of these staples that needed removing in his skull. So he'd gone to theatre, had a big washout, and he was going home. And I asked my educator, like, oh, I've never had to take staples out of someone's skull before. How does that work? And she said, oh, it doesn't even hurt them. I don't know how I thought that could be possible. By this point, like, you're taking them out and the hair's started to grow back from when they've shaved. So you're not just ripping out staples, you're pulling out their hair as well. And this kid was young. And anyway, but I am naively going in thinking it's not going to hurt. So I removed the first one, and this kid screamed blue murder. And the parent was also very distressed. I removed a couple of them, and I felt really emotional and left the room and went to my educator. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And she said, oh, I'll come in and help. And she went in and started removing some of the more tricky ones. And I just had left the room and burst into tears. And the dad came out of the room and said, you're more gentle than the other lady. He really wants you to come back in. And he could see that I'd been crying, and he was kind of shocked by that. But I think it was also a reminder to him that we're human. Like, I'm not just going around making children cry and then being like, oh, this is another day in paradise. Like, it's horrible when you have to do things that hurt your patients or distress them. But I said, I just need 5 minutes. And I went into the medication room and had a really full body bawl and was just shaking, like having a good cry. And then I had to walk into the room, like smiling with my eyes squinty so the kid couldn't see I'd been crying. And the dad had given him a pep talk of like, we're going to be strong, because he'd seen how distressed I was. And I removed all of them. There had 17 of these staples. And when I left the room, it was horrible. It was hard. I hated every single moment of it. But when I finished, it just gave me a real sense of like, I can push through these uncomfortable moments, and you're going to have your own where you just don't leave with that stuff for the next shift because you don't want to do it. There will be moments where you really can't cope with it, but you're surprised at what you can cope with. So, just you're about to have a really amazing, difficult, challenging year, but just embrace it. I'm sorry if we haven't gotten to all of everybody's questions, but what we'll do is we'll wrap up. I would love to keep answering questions afterwards if you guys want to send them through. I can put my email in here so that you can contact me. Jordan's just going to put the link to that feedback form I was talking about. Please fill that out for us. I really would appreciate if you did. It helps me with organising these and knowing what you guys want to know. We also organise other free webinars, so what else you'd like to see in the future. On that, you will have your discount codes for signing up for your indemnity insurance, so 50% off, which you will need to have when you step onto your ward. You need to be covered as soon as you start working. And then at the bottom of that, you've got your opportunity to get free, a year for free if you decide to give us a review. But also, if you haven't got a grad program, so we're in the process of building it out. You'll need to give us a bit of time, but that's something we'll be working on the beginning of this year, is just finding places where you can apply that will be happy to take you, knowing that you don't have any experience yet. Sorry, I'll just pop the form in. So this is the form. So please do open that one and leave us some feedback. And then I will pop my email address in there as well so that you guys can send through any emails that you, any more questions that you have. If they come up later on, I'm very happy to answer them. And any questions about membership as well. Thanks so much to Cashel and to Cara for joining us. I'm sorry we didn't have a bigger panel today. I will, in the email we send out to you guys with the recording, I'll also include the recording from the previous webinar we did on what to expect in your grad year, because that had about 6 RNs in it and was really, really great. So, yes, Cashel, awesome. Anyway, so we'll, also I could pass on any questions to any relevant members of the team if you had something you wanted to know more about in certain areas. Thanks so much, guys, and hopefully we'll, good luck with your beginning of your year, and we might see you at another webinar when we try and check in during your grad year.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Oh, no stress. Thank you so much.
Yeah.